Hello, you're welcome to Classic Data Lab, where we provide you with the needed skills to extract insight, add value, and make impact from data. In today's video, I'm going to start Python programming series with you, which will cover both procedural programming and object-oriented programming. I'm starting with the assumption that you are new to Python programming, so I will start from the grassroots level, okay? However, if you are already a Pythonista or a Pythoneer, that means if you're already programming with Python, you will still benefit, okay? It doesn't mean that if you are already a Pythonista, you wouldn't benefit from this video. You will benefit a lot. So try and watch this video to the end. All right, so having mentioned that, let's get started. Lesson content. In this lesson, we are going to cover some basic things to know about Python programming. Before even you start programming with Python, there are some basic things that you need to know about Python. And then the core data types in Python, arithmetic operators in Python, and the assignment operators in Python, right? So that is our focus for today. So let's move on to the first aspect of it. Some basic things you need to know about Python. Number one thing that you should know about Python is that Python is case sensitive, unlike other programming languages, which do not care about whether you are starting with a capital or a small letter. In Python, if you write, let's say, Kofi with let me just take off this, and then let's say you write something like this, Kofi with small with a capital K, and you write another Kofi here, let's say small k, and you run this, you realize that saying false means that this the Kofi with the capital K is not the same as the Kofi with the small k, right, or the lowercase k, right? So pay attention to that. It's case sensitive. That means that if you use an uppercase for the same word, right, use a small case for the same thing. I mean, you are writing with an uppercase for a particular word, and you also use small case for the same word. It doesn't mean the same thing, right? It will mean different thing in Python programming. So Python is case sensitive. All right, the second thing has to do with spacing. Python use spacing for indentation. So space means a lot to Python as far as programming is concerned. If you write something like, let's say, Kofi here, and instead of starting from the very beginning of the cell, I bring a space here and I run this, I will definitely get an error, right? So let's see this, right? You get that? You see that I'm getting an error here because space means a lot in Python. So you don't just bring space anyhow. We will later learn about spacing in Python, or we will later see how space is being used in Python when we get to control flows and functions. Okay, so no need to worry about that for now. Okay, then the next thing we want to tackle is the print function. If you are using Jupyter Notebook like we are doing at the moment, sometimes you don't have to worry about the print function, but it's important to know that the print function is the function used by Python to display output of a code. So for instance, if I have if I write Kofi right now, or let me write Monday as a first day of the week, I write something like this, Monday, okay, and I run it, it will print out like this, right? It will show the output. Okay, let me add another day to it, and let's call this one Tuesday, right? And I run it. You realize that the Monday is no more showing. It's now the Tuesday, right? So if you want to display all of them, then the print function will help you do that, right? It will forcefully display the output of your code. So let's see that right now. So print again. Okay, let me run this for you to see. Right now you see that it's printing the Monday and then the Tuesday. So this tells you that in Jupyter Notebook, if you write a code in a cell, the last code, output is displayed. But if you want to display other lines of code or the output of other codes in the cell, then use the print function. That's for Jupyter Notebook. If you are using any other IDE like Atom, Sublime, or PyCharm or VS Code, you will definitely need the print function to display each output, right? So you have to use it anytime you want to display an output. This is something that you should pay attention to, right? In Python programming. Then we move to what we call variables, right? In programming. A variable in computer programming simply refers to a character or characters used to store information or data in order to reference them in the future, okay, or for reference sake. So you can simply see a variable as a data holder or information holder, right? There are times that your data is big or your data is plenty. You will just want to give it a simple name so that when you call the name, it retains the whole data for you. And that's a variable. That particular name is what we call a variable. So let's see an example here. We have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right, and Friday as days of the week. And then instead of just writing them like this, I want to assign them to a name called weekdays, right? So weekdays, you can see here, this weekdays is what we call the variable. So when I run this, in case you don't know how to run a code in Jupyter Notebook, kindly check my videos on Introduction to Jupyter Notebook, right? All the basics are taught over there. However, if you want to run this code with a shortcut, just press Shift plus Enter and then it's run. So now if I call weekdays, Shift Enter again, you could see that it's now displaying whatever information was assigned to it here, right? So that's a variable for you. So one thing or there are some few things you need to know about variables naming. You don't just choose any name anyhow, right? So what are the things you need to know? First, use small letters for variable names. This is very, very important. This is very, very crucial. I want you to be a professional, and therefore you must learn things rightly, okay? So if you want to use a particular word as a variable, make sure it is written in lowercase, not in uppercase, okay? If you write it in uppercase, you wouldn't get error. It will still work for you, but it is against the Python conventions, right? You will confuse other professionals who are working because in Python, if you start with an uppercase, it suggests something different. It suggests that what you are seeing is a class, not even a variable, right? So it's very, very important to pay attention to this. Don't start with an uppercase. Just use lowercase for variable names. Okay, that's the first thing. Another thing that you need to pay attention to is the underscore, right? Don't bring gaps in there. For instance, weekdays, if I write weekdays like this and I bring a space here between the week and the days, I'll get an error, right? So in variable naming in Python, don't bring spaces. If you want to bring a space, just use an underscore rather, right? And that is it. That's the reason why you see the underscore here. One thing that you can also do is you can add numbers. For instance, I want to call this week 1. If I want to call this week 1, I can just say week underscore 1, right? And this will save it for me for week 1 here. It will work, but don't start with 1 first. Okay, don't start a variable name with a number. That will also not work for you. So let's have this week 1. You could see that it's printed the same thing, right? So you can use numbers to differentiate variable names. So let's also be careful not to just assign, let's say, a number to a whole data like this. This will also give you an error, right? So these are the basic things about variables that you should pay attention to. So let me take it back to week days. All right, okay, we are back. So now we can move on. Let's move on to the last thing that I want to tell you about variable names is that do not use reserved words. There are words that are already reserved by Python for completing some task, okay? So these words could be keywords for functions or for classes or any other thing in Python, and you shouldn't use those words as your variable names. Now the problem is, how do I know that this is a reserved word in Python, or this word is being reserved by Python for something, all right, for an action? Okay, no, there's no need to worry about that. No need to worry your brain. Whenever you are using a word and it's a reserved word, Python will highlight it green in Jupyter Notebook. In other IDEs, it may be different, but for Jupyter Notebook, it will highlight it green. For example, min is used by Python to means minimum value, right? So when I say min right now, you realize that it's highlighted green. So it wouldn't be appropriate for me to say, for instance, min is equal to 45, right? It may work, but you get yourself confused later if you want to use the same thing, right? To mean what Python is using it for, you get troubles, right? So avoid using reserved words for variable naming. Great. So that is the few things I want you to take note of before we even start with the main thing. These are more examples here. You could see the unit price. In this case, it's numbers. And mind you, variables are not just used for only values. You can also assign a whole expression to a variable, and the outcome will be saved with the variable name. For instance, I have x is equal to 23 plus 34 plus 100, 50 and 98. When I run this, the outcome or the output is stored as x. So when I call x right now, then I'll get the outcome, which is 305, right? So these are the basic things I want you to know about Python before we even start with the data types in Python. Great. Our next step is in the data types, or the core data types in Python. There are other data types in Python, but let's we start with the core ones, which are the most important ones. It forms the foundation of every programming language, right? The data types form the foundation. So it's very, very important to have a full grasp of it before we proceed to advanced stuff. Okay, so numbers in Python are either represented as integers or floats. That's the first two data types, integers and floats. So we focus on integers and floats for this particular lesson. Integers are basically positive or negative whole numbers, whilst float refers to decimals, or you can call them floating points, right? So any decimal you write in Python is seen as float, and any number you write that is not a decimal is seen as what? Integer. Okay, so Python represents integers with the keyword int, and also represent floats with the keyword float, float. Okay, the good thing is that you can change from float, you can change a data or a number from a float to a whole number, that's an integer, or from an integer to a float, okay, using these functions, like these keywords. So the int function and then the float function, I will show you very soon. One thing to also pay attention to is that anytime you are confused whether the data type is a float, is an integer, or whatever data type it is, use the type function or to display the type of the data. Okay, so this is the type function. I will also show you how that is being used. So let's start with an example here. We have age, which is age equals 45. Definitely this is a whole number, isn't it? So this is an integer. The type is an integer. And we have amount. Amount here we see 2500.65. Basically it is what? A decimal. So Python will see it as a float. Okay, these are examples. Now, if in case I'm not aware, I don't know whether age is I've not seen the value as you are seeing here. I don't know whether it is an integer or it is a float. I can use the type here, right? So I can say print type age, then it will print it for me. Let me know that, okay, this is an int class, that means it's an integer. Then the same thing for the amount. It also tells me that the amount is a float, and I can see it here, right? Good. Now let's see how we can change from an integer to a float and a float back to an integer. So for instance, we have the age, which is an integer. We want to convert it to what? A float. To do that, we just wrap the variable, the age variable here, with the float function. Okay, and we are assigning it to age underscore float so that we can differentiate it from the original value. So now when we run this, you see that it's now 45.0. When we printed it out, it's 45.0. 500.0, that tells you that it's no more an integer, it's now a float. If you print the type, you will get to see that it is is now a float. Okay, the same thing for the amount. We are reversing it, or we are taking it from a float to an integer, so using the int function, as you can see over here. When you run this and you print the type, you now see that it is an int. Now there's something that you should be careful with. In the value, the initial value was 2500.65. when we converted it to an integer, it's now 2500. What's happening here? Basically, it throws away the decimals. So when you want to convert from a float to an integer, be very careful, because it will just return the whole number and throw off the decimals, and that may not be what you are looking for. So if you rather want to do something like that, maybe you may want to round it, maybe you want to round it to a whole number, or to one decimal place, two decimal places, kindly use the round function, right? For instance, this is the 2500.65. If I'm going to round this to let's say one decimal place, I should be having 2500.7, right? Like this, isn't it? Yeah, if I want to make it round it to a whole number, rather use zero position. I'm zero here, so that I rather get it this, but it doesn't change it to an integer anyway. So maybe you may have to round this like this. Then you can also wrap it with the int function. Then you will get whatever you are looking for, right? If you wanted to round it and get a whole number, then this is the step that you should take. You first round it to the whole number, or to the whole number that you are looking for, and then convert it to an integer, like what you have seen me do, right? Great. If you go back to our lesson content, you realize that we have two more things to cover. We have arithmetic operators and then assignment operators. So let's move straight to the arithmetic operators. And then in case you also want to know how I'm able to create the table of contents such a way that it allows me to move to and fro in my notebook, check my videos on Markdown in Jupyter Notebook. The link can be found in the video description below. Please do that, and that will help a lot. There are a lot of tips and tricks that I have taught in that video concerning markdowns in Jupyter Notebook. All right, so let's continue. Arithmetic operators in Python. Basically, the arithmetic operator that you know in mathematics, the same thing plays in Python. For instance, you see the plus operator that is used for addition here, the subtraction sign, and then used for subtraction. We use the star symbol for multiplication in Python, right? Not X or not times as we usually call it. And then we also have the forward slash, right, for division. And we have double star for exponential, right? If you want to do exponentials, please don't use the caret sign. It may be coming from R programming language. In that case, you'll be tempted to use the caret sign. That will give you an error. That will give you a different thing altogether. I will demonstrate that for you in this particular notebook, right? So use double star for exponential. So if you want to say 2 raised to the power 2, is 2 star star 2, right? Great. And then modulo. The modulo operator returns to you a remainder when you divide one number by another number. Okay. So that's modulo for you. Instead of returning to you the actual value, it returns the remainder for you. So example, if you say 2 modulo 7 modulo 2, meaning that you are taking a modulo 2 of 7, right? So modulo let me say 7 modulo 2. Yeah, just straightforward. 7 modulo 2. 2 goes into 7 3 times, remaining what? 1. So this will return to you 1. Instead of getting, you are expecting 3.5, that's a division, right? So it's going to return the remainder for you. And then the floor division, or what we call the integer division, that's the reverse. It rather returns to you the factor, leaving the remainder. So for instance, if you say 7 modulo 2, it's going to return 3. Because 2 goes into 7 3 times, remainder 0, remainder 1. So it will throw off the 1 and bring the 3 to you. And these two operators are very, very crucial in Python programming. We use it for a lot of things, so don't forget about how they operate, right? If you are if this is the first time of seeing a modulo or hearing about modulo and integer division in Python, it may sound some way or may seem some way, but just stay to it, see more examples, and you'll be cool, right? So let's start with the demos. So when we can see 3 plus 4, and that's 7. We can also see 50 minus 40, 46. 5 times 4, that's 20. And then we also have 5 raised to the power 3, 5 star 3, right? To let you know that if you use the caret sign, you get a different thing. 5 caret 3 is going to give you 6. This is a bitwise operator. This is advanced stuff, so be careful not to do that, okay? And then to also show you the difference that when you use the double, it means exponential. The double star means exponential, and the single star means multiplication. I've also brought the two codes together here, right? So this is something that you should pay attention to. Now, division, 7 divided by 2 should give me 3.5, as we can see here. But when we say 7 modulo 2, right, we are getting 1, as I mentioned earlier on. 2 goes into 7 3 times, remain what? 1. So it will return that for me. The same way when we say 6 modulo 2, you should be expecting 0, because 2 goes into 6 how many times? 3, remainder 0. So it will return the remainder for you. So that's the modulo for you. Now, as I told you, the integer is the reverse of the modulo. Instead of returning the remainder, it's going to return the factor. So here we can say that 7 integer division 2 or 7 floor division 2, we are going to get 3, right? And that is it. What about if you make it 6 here? You are going to get the same thing, because 2 goes into 3, 2 goes into 6 3 times, remainder 0, right? So it will return the factor and do away with the remainder. That's the integer division for you. Good. So this brings us to the end of the arithmetic operators, right? We will see other operators as we progress in our series. The last thing in our lesson has to do with assignment operators, and I want you to pay attention to that. You see, we've already seen its usage earlier on, where we assign data to variables using the equal sign. It's important knowing that the equal sign that you see here is not the same one you know in the mathematics, okay, or in mathematics. This equal sign is not a comparison operator, it's just an assignment. It's telling you that we are storing what is on the right as what is on the left, okay? So here we are storing 45 as x, we are storing 50 as y, and we are storing 30 as z. So it's not the same as we saying that let's say what is on the left is equal to what is on the right. That's different. To do that, we rather use double equal sign like this, okay, which we will talk about later. This is a comparison operator that we will tackle later when we get to control flows. So please pay attention to that. So here, when I run this one and then I call x, is basically going to return 45 for me, as we saw earlier on, right? This one too is going to return 50, and this one is also going to return 30, right? If you are coming from arrow, you realize that this is done quite differently, right? For instance, you see the x here, and then you will see a symbol like this, like do have 45, okay? If you do this in Python, you are going to get an error, right? So please don't do that in Python, right? So Python, if you want to assign a value to something, use the equal sign. It's so simple, right? Okay, great. Then let me move to the last thing that I want to teach you, right? When, let's say that you are playing a game, right, and then you've accumulated some scores. So let's say your score is now 30, and then you are still playing the game. So let's say you've won a second time and a third time and so on. So if you, let's say if you win for the another game, I mean another competition, that means you have 3 points in addition, right? So you expect it to now your score to be 33. So you'll be tempted to say, okay, fine, score plus 3, right? Great. If you write score plus 3 like this, you get 33. But when you come back and call the score, it's still 30. That means that it didn't assign it back to the score, right? It just added, but it didn't save it back as your score. So to do that, you have to say maybe score is equal to score plus 3. That means that you are adding 3 to your previous value or your previous score, and you are calling it, or you are assigning it to the same name, right? So in this case, when I come here and I call the score, I'll get 33. So my 3 points are now in there, right? But assuming you are playing this game for, let's say, 100 times or 20 times or 10 times, will you be coming back to be adding all the time like that? So to do this, there is a very handy way of doing this in Python. Okay, so instead of saying score is equal to score plus 3, all that you need to do is score equal score plus equal 3. This may look somehow let's say it may seem weird to you if this is the first time, but let me explain it to you. What Python does is that it performs the first operator here, which is the arithmetic operator, right? Then before it performs the second operator. So it means that the score plus 3, okay, and you assign this outcome back to score. So that is that's it, right? So if I run this, I expect to get 36 right now. Great. So let me print score here. I get 36 now. So you can use arithmetic operator and assignment operator together for update or to update a variable. So if I run this again, it's going to add 3 and then it becomes what, 39, right? It doesn't only work for the addition. I can also bring subtraction here. So it will deduct 3 from the score and assign it back to the name score, right? And now when I print it, you see that it's 36. If I run it again, it's going to deduct 3 like that. Okay, and you can also use multiplication. Is the last one here. When I run it, you see that you now have 99. 33 by 3, 99. Okay, good. So that's the way to use assignment operator and arithmetic operator together to update a variable. But before you leave, I would like to share with you a tip for the day, right? So the tip for the day is that, for instance, what we just learned right now, let's say points is equal to 20, and then you want to update it, you bring the arithmetic operator first before the assignment operator, like this. So now points is 23. But if you bring the the assignment operator first, what means is that you are going to assign the point 3.3 to the variable points, and then you assign that whole outcome again to point. So what it means is that you are going to get the same thing, and that's dangerous, right? So that's the tip for the day, that do not bring the assignment operator first, bring the arithmetic operator, and this can be very, very tricky. So that's for your packet. See you in the next video. But before you leave, I will want to show you where you can access this Jupyter notebook that I've used here. Just check in the description of the video below. You will see a link, a GitHub link to where this particular notebook is stored. You can download it, use it, share it, and help your colleagues. See you in the next video, and bye for now. Happy learning.